2024, and I actually created a new project, a new challenge for today's webinar. So what's the goal for today? Well, we are going to show you how you can convert a VCL application, a point of sales VCL application in this case, which is, of course, as it's VCL, it is a Delphi desktop Windows application. And I will show you today in this session how you can convert this application to a simple point of sale web application. And so what are we going to use for that? I'm going to do the demonstration here live with Delphi 12.1, but any version like 10.2 or newer is fine. And being here from TMS software, of course, there are a couple of TMS software components involved. And so what I will be using, let me switch the screen here a little bit. Okay, that's better. So what we are going to use, Delphi 12.1 in this session, and I'm going to use the one component, or actually two components from the FNC UI pack, and I will use that component in both the VCL application and the web application. I will also use a chart. Same story here. I will use it in the VCL application and also in the web application. And to create that web application, I'm going to use WEB Core. For this presentation, I tried to, I see that, I see a remark that I should not be visible, or can you confirm that everything is fine with the presentation? I see here in the chat. Just a second. That's of course the thing with live. So can you confirm that you see the slide with and also see my camera, right? Okay, then everything should be fine, and maybe let's go back to the start so we have everything properly for the recording. So I'm Bruno Fierens, working at TMS Software, and I'm happy to do this live presentation here during the Dev Days Summer 2024. And the goal for my presentation today is to show you, within the scope of this 1 hour webinar, to show you how you can convert an existing, a simple point of sales VCL desktop Windows application and convert that into a web application. And the tools that I'm going to use for that are, of course, Delphi. Today I will be using Delphi 12.1, but anything Delphi 10.2 or newer will do. And being from TMS software, it's kind of logical that I will also involve a couple of TMS components. I will involve two FNC controls from the FNC UI pack. I will use these controls both in the VCL desktop application and in the web application. And I will also use the FNC chart, both in VCL and web. And the framework to realize all this is TMS WEB Core. Note here that I will be using version 2.6, which at this moment is still a beta, that has several improvements that I will highlight during this webinar and that make it well worth for better coding practices, especially with regards to accessing the backend, but I'll come to the details later on in this webinar. And what I will also use is our upcoming Stellar Data Store and cloud service for creating a backend without writing a single line of code. And so how are we going to do that? I will do everything live. I will start from scratch with zero code in the web project, and we will build it up step by step during this webinar. The theme for this point of sale application, well, I chose a theme that fits with the summertime here in Europe, and I chose as such the theme of an ice cream selling point of sales application, so to keep us all fresh during these hot summer days. And so before sharing the source code with you, let's dive into the IDE and start with this project. I have here a project group, and that contains the finished web application, but we will start from scratch, as I explained, and also the VCL application. Let's maybe first of all have a look at the VCL application. So what do we have? We have a tab control with 3 tabs. One tab is for managing the flavors of ice cream that our application is selling, and managing the pictures that represent the flavor for everything that we have. We'll have the point of sales screen where we can pick the flavor to sell to our customer, make up an order if a family orders like 5 flavors, that we can manage that, and then finish the order if everyone is served. We'll store it in the database, and in the database we can of course see the orders that we have managed. And an interesting tidbit that we will do is here build a pie chart that represents, with which we can see what are the most sold flavors of ice cream with the application. In terms of database, I've chosen something very simple for this VCL application, and I did everything with client datasets that will store the data in XML files for easy distribution. When you get the source code of this application, that you do not have to set up any special database, that everything will work right away out of the box. And the setup is also quite simple. We have a table for managing the flavors of our ice cream. We have a table to manage the orders that we received. So that's actually the order number and a timestamp. And then we have the order details table, and that contains for each order that is placed, the different flavors that can be added to this order. Maybe to make it clear to you, let's run this application. Here it is. And here we see the tab with the flavors. And so you can see that this is currently what I have configured here in this application for all flavors of ice cream that can be selected. If I go to the point of sales tab, you can see here the FNC tile list, and this tile list manages all the flavors that we have loaded in tiles, and I can slide between these tiles. I can also do a lookup of my favorite flavor, which is the coconut flavor, and this way you could, for example, easily manage this via a touchscreen. When I click on blueberries, when I click on coconut, that will be my order here in this case for 4.5 euros. And when I finish this order, everything is actually stored here in the orders detail table. So this has been order number 11, and I have ordered two flavors. These are the indexes of the flavor, and this is the price of the flavor. And you can see here that I manage also in this column the price of each flavor for the ice cream. So that's it. That is the VCL application, what I also wanted to highlight is that also this one is a FNC control. And I've used this FNC control because it allows me to easily manage the formatting of each item in this list box here, in this case, to also show you the flavor that has been selected with not only the name, but also the picture. Okay, and so our goal for today is to convert this application into a web application so that if you build it once, people can run it directly out of the browser from everywhere on every device these days. Maybe first I will give you some background on the backend that we will use for this application. So I talked about 3 tables. A table for flavors, one for orders, one for order details. So I will use this no-code data backend, which will launch, which has been in beta for a few months already, and that is on the brink of launching. This is my account, and in my account, you can see here that I have already set up different tables. And here you can see the ice cream table. This is the table. Let's see the fields that we have in this table. So an ID field, which is an automatically available field, a unique key field for this table, the name of the flavor, the price of this flavor, a float, and also the picture, which is a blob field. We also have the orders table. The orders table here, in this case, also has the key ID and the date, the timestamp when this order was placed. And in the order details table, I have the same key, the order number, so that's the reference to the key field of the orders table, the flavor that was ordered, and the price at which the flavor was ordered or purchased, because this will store the price at the moment of sale. If at some point in time the price of the flavor increases, it will historically have all the original prices. So these are the 3 tables here, ice cream, order details, and orders, that I have already created in my own personal Stellar Data Store account. And these tables I can create on the fly here using this interface. I can manage these fields, add fields, change the field types, etc. All these things I can do. And what I also did for the convenience of this small demo, that is adding an access token. That access token will be used to use the REST API and to access these tables via the REST API with my access token. What is also possible and what is actually recommended for security, that is applying OAuth. So in other words, that someone first needs to authenticate and authorize before on the fly an access token will be generated with a limited lifetime, so that only this person who has authenticated can of course access the tables here. But for simplicity, I have here in this case created one access token. I will not show you this access token because clearly when you would use this access token, you could also for example delete all the data that I will manage here during the scope of this webinar. So that is the backend that I will be using. And so there we go. We start from scratch, and we will add a new project in the Delphi IDE, and we chose a web application, and it is added to our group. And let's maybe first of all save this application. So we will save it in a folder, the Dev Days 2024. folder. Oops, that is where we will store this application. Okay, that is stored and ready. Let's make the form somewhat bigger. And what I will also actually do is I have my token, the access token that I retrieved from the Stellar DS service. I have that access token in a include file. I will later need that access token, so I will include that token.inc file so that I have access to my tables in the Stellar DS data store. So first things first, let's start with a page control, which actually is very similar. It's actually 100% the same. 3 pages in a page control, where the first one will be for the flavors, to manage the flavors. The second one will be our point of sale system. And the third one is for our orders. So I select this tab sheet, and here we will be managing the order statistics from. And so first step is to build the system to manage the flavors that we have available in our ice cream store. And what I will be using is a WebDB grid. So one little side note here is that with WEB Core, we have tried, it has always been our goal to make developing web applications as similar as possible to creating a VCL application, still allowing you to access everything that is available in the browser, but for reducing the learning curve, that everything is as familiar as possible to a VCL application. That's why we have the DB grid that is modeled after the VCL DB grid, and we have the DB navigator that is similarly also modeled after the VCL DB navigator. What I will do here is I will, for adding pictures to my flavors table, I will drop here a file uploader component. So obviously my images are typically stored in a local file. So I need to upload these images to my web application if I want to add a new flavor. And then I have here an image control, and that image control will show you the picture of the flavor. What I will change in my image control is I will set the width style to automatic. Why am I doing that? That is, if I set here a fixed height, the height is fixed because height style is absolute and is set to 100. By allowing the width to automatically change, that means that my picture will be displayed with respecting the aspect ratio of the picture. So these are the controls that I will be using on my first form that I'm building. And then I'm going to add the data set for that will manage the flavors. And similar to a VCL web application, VCL desktop application, I will also use data sets and data sources to hook up the DB aware controls to the data stores, to the data set. So what I will do here is this will be the flavor data source, and this will be the flavor data set. I will call this flavor DS like this. And of course, I assign it to the data set. And what I do is I assign the data source to my DB grid and to my DB navigator. What I also need to specify here for my Stellar data store data set is the table name, which in this case will be ice cream. You've seen that here in the table list, here we have the name of this table, which is ice cream. That's what we select for flavors. What we then need to do is assign the access token and open the data set. There's not much more to do than this. In the on-show event, what I will do here is for my flavor data set, I set the access token to access token, and obviously for doing that, I need to include my token include file. Then this access token const is available. And the next thing that I will be doing is call initialize, because in a moment I will need to do a few more initializations. So let's separate this in one initialize procedure. And in this initialize procedure, what I will do is I will call await, and that needs some explaining. I will do that in a moment. For the flavor DS dataset, open async, like this. So what is happening here? In the web, in the browser, a lot of operations are happening asynchronously. Anything that involves underlying HTTP requests for consuming a REST API is by nature, by design, asynchronous. In the browser, that is a normal thing, and that is normal for the reason that browser is designed to keep the web page responsive at all times. So operations that could take some time, like doing an HTTP access, will not hold up, interfere with anything that is being rendered in the web page. That's why these things are asynchronous by design. And in the web world, something that is a standard practice is to work with promises. And a promise is something that will logically allow you to structure your code like sequentially, but still it will not hold up all the other things that can possibly happen in your web page. So what is happening here is opening the data set is an asynchronous operation, and I tell this opening, I use an await construct to asynchronously wait for this being opened. And in the process, this will not actually prevent that anything else in the page will freeze. What I will need to do, though, is mark this initialize procedure as an asynchronous procedure. Everywhere where I'm using await constructs, I need to specify this async attribute. Okay, if I did not overlook anything, let's double check again. So I specify the table name. I assigned the data source, the data set to the data source. Did I assign? I assigned them to the DB grid and also to the DB navigator. So that first step should be fine. Let's see if that is also reality. Let's compile and run this application. And here we see the first result. So what we see is our DB navigator data is filled in the DB grid. We see the flavor name, the price, and here we see the picture and we see an URL. Why do we see a URL? Because this concerns a blob field. And blob fields are by design not loaded immediately. You can access the blob field through a unique URL, and this is the URL for each of these blob fields. So I'll need to work with this to actually get hold of my picture that is stored in the blob. All right, let's do some further extensions to this application. What I will do and what I will need is enable column sizing and editing, because obviously I want that my grid will be editable. And what I now want to do is show the picture when the record in my DB grid changed. And so what I do for this is I implement the after scroll event, so that is triggered every time the record has changed. And I will win some time by here inserting the prepared code for the after scroll. But of course, I will explain it to you what it is all about. I also need to add some units here to make this code work. Web tools actually is what I need, and also weblib.utils. I'll explain it why I add that. So what do I do? In the scroll event, when the data set has the controls disabled, obviously nothing is happening. If the value of my block field, which is the URL, the unique URL, if that is an empty value, and that can be empty, for example, when you insert a new record for the first time, then I assign actually the presentation for an empty image in my image control. You have to know that when an image element in a web browser page has no source for this image set, the browser typically shows some specific image to indicate, okay, here is an image that I cannot find. So if we really want to see nothing, what we do here is actually set a fully transparent PNG, small PNG image in this HTML image element. And with that, nothing is really visible, also not the typical browser broken image that is displayed. And here comes the call that will retrieve as binary data the content of that blob field. So it will execute the read blob as array buffer. And okay, I see a remark to increase the font of the editor. So let's increase the font. Where is that again? Editor. Display most likely, and here the font. Let's set it to 14. And I hope that is better this way. Okay, we are at a bigger font now. So this is about retrieving the binary data stored in the blob field in my table for flavors. And this is obviously an asynchronous call. So I will wait using the await construct to wait for that data to come back. And here I'm testing if the response is actually a valid array buffer, and if the size of that buffer is larger than 0. In that case, I will load my picture from the array buffer. In the other case, and that's better without a space there for the formatting, then I assign again this empty image. So why not also immediately add now the code for uploading an image when I have selected a new image? For that, I'm using the onDropped files event of the upload control. So that event is triggered when I drag an image over the area of this uploader control, but also it is triggered when I click on a link that will be rendered here, and I can use a file open dialog to pick the image via this way. So in this event handler, I need to add some code. And first thing that I do is check if any files have effectively been dropped when that event is executed. And when that is the case, what I do is I pick the first file that was dropped and request to get that file as an array buffer. I request to get the binary representation of the file dropped on the file upload control. Also here, this is something asynchronously happening. File can be small, large, can take some time if it's a large file. Browser does not want to hold up, freeze, or be stuck for any reason. So this is by design in the browser an asynchronous event. And when the result is ready, it will trigger the on get file as array buffer event. That event will be triggered when it is ready. And when that is ready, what I will do is actually load the image from the array buffer that was uploaded, and I can do it this way. And what I can also do here is upload the image that was retrieved as a blob in the data set. So it will be uploaded to the picture field, and of course also here it is the array buffer that is used to upload this file. I overlooked one thing, that is in this scrolled event I'm using the await construct. That makes the entire code in this block an asynchronous executed code block. So I need to mark that here, and marking that can be done in two ways, with the attribute like I did here, async, but it can also be done by using the async decorator. You can see now that the LSP from the IDE shows on that, obviously because this is a web-specific decorator unknown by the LSP. So what I do is to use it in a convenient way, use the identifier pas2js, that is the Pascal to JavaScript compiler. So it's only seen by the compiler, it's not seen by the LSP. So let's check up now if I did not overlook anything. And if that's the case, it should work. And let's see how far that brings us already. And okay, that is nice. We can already see the pictures now. And assume that our shop has a couple of extra flavors. Here I have the pictures of the flavors, and our shop has decided to add 2 more flavors. As you can see, I have no pear yet today in my shop, so we will add pear. And as this is a brand new flavor, let's make it somewhat more expensive than standard. You see that the URL is empty. It's a new record, so no blob field access yet. But as soon as I have posted, my URL is available. And so let's see, when I drag the peer, drop it on the upload component, and you see it is shown in the image control. And you can see that it is now in the blob field. And I have another flavor that I want to introduce this summer. Let's insert it. It is orange, a nice flavor. And also this one will be a little bit more expensive this year. Inflation, you know. And so this is my orange field. Let's set the picture for orange. And that is ready. You can see new flavors have been added. And with that, the first part of our application, managing the flavors in our shop, is handled, is dealt with. Let's move now to the actual point of sales system. And let's migrate now the VCL screen for this point of sales. And let's pick a little bit from the VCL application. So what I will do is I move to the POS screen. First thing that I will do is copy this FNC tile list that I'm using for that and copy it to this screen. Let's make it somewhat smaller so it fits on this form. That's okay. That should be something like that. Okay, that should be more or less good. Notice that I have used anchoring for my tile list so that my tile list will always be anchored in the bottom of my screen so that it will become larger if my browser window becomes larger. See here that we have also used the concepts for designing a VCL application and offered you also these capabilities in a web application. You can, of course, use all HTML and CSS based layouting techniques, but at the same time, for your convenience, for porting something fast, you can also take advantage of what's being offered in the VCL. So what we need next is our FNC list box. So let's drop this one on the form. It has initialized with a couple of default items when I drop it new on the form. So I will want to get rid of these. Okay. And bring me back to my POS. Okay. And now I will add two buttons. One button to empty my ordered items, and I will also use one button to finish the order. So in case someone makes a mistake and wants to start anew, that is what the new order button will be used for. And here we have the finish order that will actually finish the order, store the order information in my order tables. And what I will also add while I'm busy is a label, and a label that will show the amount that the order represents. Let's move this a little bit upwards. I need to set it to 0. And okay, I will set the amount here. Let's also increase the font size somewhat. Another remark about font sizes, you can see that I'm here now configuring everything via properties. Nothing holds you back actually to also use CSS here. There's a free choice you can choose. If you set element font to CSS, then it will listen to the CSS settings. If I select the property, then it will use the font property to control this. All right, what I will also add, let's add everything so that at least that part is finished. I will add the filter box, and okay, that's the label for my filtering. Where's the caption for that? The caption for that is here, filter, and this is the edit box for my filter. Of course, I want this to be empty when it is started. So now I need to start adding the necessary code, and the first code that I will add is filling up the tile list, showing all the flavors that are available in nicely divided in tiles. So back to the code for that, and I added also a code snippet, the code snippet that performs loading the tiles. So that is added in one method, load tile list. Let's expand this and let's copy this piece of code that I will explain in a moment to tell you what this piece of code is doing. So what is happening here? There's one thing that I overlooked, and that is adding a bitmap container. The bitmap container is also an FNC component, and this is a component that is a collection of images. And the special thing here is that this collection of images can hold images of different sizes, different formats, all mixed up together. And these images are referenced by a name. So if I go here to the items collection editor and I pick, let's see what I can pick here, one flavor, this banana, for example. Okay, this has been added. And okay, no, I want to just select it here. This is the name with which I will access that banana. And I can access that image in various ways in the various FNC controls, including also in HTML that I specify for elements in my, for text in my FNC controls. Here you can see, for example, in a tile, HTML formatted text. And I will use this bitmap container in connection with my FNC tile list and also with my FNC list box. Remember that when I selected a flavor in the tile list, that same image for the flavor was shown in the FNC list box. So that is achieved by hooking both up to the bitmap container. And here in our code, you can see that I'm using the bitmap container to fill up all the images. So here I'm clearing the tile list, I'm clearing the bitmap container just in case it contains still some images. Here I'm defining fields for accessing data in my flavors table. And then what I'm doing here is create a temporary image control. Reason for doing that is because I will be using that image control to encode, dynamically resize all my images to ensure that the maximum width or height is 100. So whatever size of images that you add to the bitmap container, to your blob field in your data store table, this code will ensure that the image is sized properly to display properly in the tile list. So to perform that resizing, well, let's do it step by step. Here I'm simply looping through my flavors data set. I'm adding a picture to the bitmap container, and I set the name to the name of the flavor. If that name, in other words, if the blob field exists, so there is a URL to access it, I will here load that the binary data of my picture via the road blob as array buffer method. It is also obviously an asynchronous method. And if the array buffer contains any data, I will construct here a base64 representation of the image, because that is what an HTML image element works with. I assign this base64 representation for my image to the runtime created image element. And this image element I can use to resize it to ensure it's smaller than 100. And when that is ready, I fill the bitmap of my bitmap container element with the resized image. And when that is ready, I can create a tile list item, and I set the title for my tile list item. I keep a reference to my image. I keep a reference to the ID of my flavor. I also keep a reference, to my the price of this flavor. And finally, I have the description where I'm using some HTML to show the picture of the flavor and also the price here of the flavor in a tile. And then, of course, I go to the next item in my data set. And that should be it. If I did not forget anything, of course, I need to load or call loading the tile list, and that is from initialize that I can do that. Load tile list, I do that in the flavor data set, and I fill the TMS FNC tile list with it. Let's see if I also for this next step did not forget anything. Let's see if this works. Okay, that looks good. Let's bring up the browser. And okay, we can see here that my tile list is now filled up with the flavors, and actually similar to the VCL application, you can see that you can also browse through the different pages of my tile list. That is all automatically done by this tile list component for us. All right, that was another good step forward. So next steps that we have to do is when I click an image in my tile list, I want this to be added to my order, to the list of items in my order. That's the next step. Then it should also show me the total price of this order. And then another step is to finish the order. In other words, create the order and add all items that belong to this order to this new created order. So let's do these things now. Maybe I will do first the easiest thing. That is, did I not set the name yet for my, so that is label total. I will use that name. And so to clear the order, that's kind of easy. Then I set the caption back to 0 to indicate that there is 0 cost. And I also empty my list box here in this case. So I remove items from my list box. And the same will actually also apply to finishing the order. Here I will not clear the list yet because of course I need the items in the list to process the order. So now what I will do is I will add the on item click event here. And when an item is clicked, then I add this to the order. Also for that, I tried to save some time to keep everything within the scope of this webinar and have the add order method that I expand and add the code to this method. So what is happening here is actually quite simple. I access the clicked tile list item. I create a new list box item. I assign the bitmap of my tile list item to the list box item. I set the text for this list box item to the flavor name and the price between brackets. And I keep also the index of the flavor and the price of the flavor in data that goes with the list box item. And finally, I also update the label. I just add the price of the added item to the value that is already in the label. Something very simple to add up all the prices of the flavors. And that should already be sufficient to add the order. Maybe we can quickly test it before the last step, and that is creating the order, storing the items in the order. So my tile list is being filled, and of course that's quite logical. I need to do adding the order from my click on the item. And so here the first thing is the item index. Then we have the FNC tile list that it will use like this. It will use the list box, FNC list box, and it will also use the label reference to update that label. There's one more thing that I want to add in the process, and that is dynamically changing the number of rows in my tile list. Why I'm doing that? Because if there's a lot of room in my tile list, it can be beneficial that multiple rows are being shown. And that I can do in the following way. I have here my FNC tile list number of rows property that I can configure, and I will make this number of rows actually the results of dividing the total available height of the tile list by 150, so that each row is at least 150 pixels high. And in the process, let's also implement the filtering. The filtering I call from the changed edit control for my filter, and I can filter the tile list also in a very simple way with passing the filter condition here in the apply filter column. I actually copied the tile list from my VCL application, and there's also properties in my tile list for specifying how the filter works. Here I made the filter case insensitive, not case sensitive as such, and also to match any kind of text within the title of the tile list item. And so with that, I believe that everything should be ready before the last step, which is actually creating the order. So let's see, let's bring up the browser. Okay, and let's see if this has the expected. Yeah, you can see now that I have only one row, and as I size, it adds more rows to my tile list. And when I click now, you can see 3 flavors selected, total price 6, and now we are ready. Oh, let's see if the filtering is working. The chocolate is coming up, so all these things are working nicely. And we are fully ready to do the last part, which is saving the orders. Let's clean up some browser tabs to save some memory, and then let's go to the orders. And so here I will need some extra tables to access. So I add some more data sets for my Stellar Data Store tables, and also data sources. Okay, the web data source, and I need another one, web data source. Okay. And now I do here, I set this to the order data set, and that will use the orders table, and this will be the orders data source, which of course will be hooked up to the orders data set. Here is my order details. So that will be order details data set. It will use the table order details. And here I have my data source for it, which will be order details data source. Okay. I will also want to show the orders in a grid. Let's go web DB grid. Here is my DB grid. Okay, and I will want to add a button for getting my statistics of flavors. And let's set the caption to statistics. And what I will do now is steal from my VCL application my FNC chart. I will want to steal it because I have already configured here, when you go to edit series, that is the design time editor that you have for the FNC chart. Here it is, and I have here the series and all the configurations. By just copy and pasting this to my web form, I already take advantage of all these settings so that I do not have to do that again. All right, so you see that I set the title already, it picked up the title, so everything is ready to go. Did I hook up the data sets? Yes, I did that. I need to hook up the data set for my order details. Okay. And then I'm actually ready to do two things. I need to initialize these data sets, of course. And for doing that, I can is the orders DS access token. Same, we'll use the same access token for that. And then the order details dataset access token. And that also uses this same access token. And from my initialize method, I can actually also asynchronously open these two data sets. So that will be the orders dataset and the order details dataset, like this. So these two data sets are open now, and now I can add the code from my finish order button to actually persist the order in the data set. For that, I also have a method that I created in advance. That is the finish order method. Let's expand it and let's copy and paste this code. This is the code for that. And let's briefly go over that. What I do is I create a new record in the order data set. I set the order date to the current timestamp, and I post this to this data set. With posting this to the data set and with awaiting for the asynchronous result, I will use here the ID, which is an auto increment field, the ID, to assign in my order details table all detail items to this specific order. And I'm doing that by looping over all the list box items. Here I have my fields to access all the fields in the order details. And here I set the order ID, the flavor ID, the price that I also added to my data item in my list box. And then I perform an asynchronous post of this order detail. And I do this in a loop over all my list box items. And of course, I need to hook this up into this finish orders click handler, and that is the orders data set, the order details data set, and the FNC list box that I need for that. And that should be it. That should, I think, work. What I want to verify is, did I set the data source? I set it right to my this DB grid. So let's see if here I did not overlook anything and everything works as expected. Let's check this result. And okay, flavors are loaded, the tile list is loaded, and the orders are not loaded. So clearly I have overlooked something. Why did it not fill my table with orders or order details better? So the table name is set, that is correct. The order details is, this is not set to my data set. So I suspect that this will be the reason that my DB grid is not filled. So, okay, let's bring up my browser. And as you can see now, my order details dataset is filled up, and you can see that my last order number is 32. Let's see if when I create a new order, let's pick cherries and coconut and add chocolate in the mix. Let's finish this order. Let's go to the order page, and you can see here order number 33 was created, and here are the flavors that I did select. So also that part is already working, and now we are moving to the finish, and the finish is by making up the statistics in our FNC chart. Maybe what I can do is briefly bring up again this VCL desktop application. So you can see here anything is the same. I go to the orders page. The order 12 was here created. And when I want to request the statistics, you can see here that the pie chart is built up with all the flavors. And you can see in this case here, coffee is the most requested flavor. So let's finish also our web application with this last piece of code. And so I need to add this to my the button from where I will build the statistics. That will be the method from where I do that. And I also tried to save up some time here and with a method that builds the statistics. I expand that method, and okay, this is the code that is doing that. I see that I need some more things. Actually, not that. Let's bring it back. I actually want this piece of code. Here, this is it. Okay. That is actually 100% the same code as for the VCL application. It's literally copy and paste. Also, I wanted to have some colors to initialize my pie chart. And I will also use a class to keep track of the number of flavors that were ordered for each flavor. Interesting tidbit is I was a little bit lazy and did not want to come up with all the pie chart colors myself. So I actually asked ChatGPT if it could give me a list of colors. And this you can see the history of what I prepared. I asked, can you generate 40 colors presented as a Delphi array of color values? And this is, you can see how nicely ChatGPT came up with that. And I also asked, can you now please show me how this visually looks? And even that ChatGPT could generate for me on the fly. So I was pretty impressed. And at the same time, I did win some time. So I promised to, well, first we need to build the statistics from there based on the order details data set with a lookup in the flavor data set and represent everything in the FNC chart, this one. And let's inspect what this code is actually doing. What I'm doing is looping over the data set for the order details. And what I do is look up the name of, or actually get the index of the flavor. I add this to a string list. That is the string list that I will use to make this statistics. And when it's the first time that I add this flavor, I add an object with a counter to this list, string list items, and I initialize the counter to 1. If that flavor is already found, I just increase the counter that goes with my string list with the string object that goes with it. And I do this for all the records in my order details data set. And then I will actually fill up the chart. So what I do is I first start with clearing the chart series. So all the points, I clear them to ensure that I start with new information. And then for all the values I collected in that string list, I look up actually the name of the flavor, because that name of the flavor, I want to set it as the annotation with each point that I add via the series add point. So here I add the counter, the flavor name, and then I use the one of the 40 pie chart colors, and again as the legend, here also the flavor again. And that is it. Not much more than that is needed to create the statistics for my flavor. Okay, let's bring up this application. So we have everything, and let's see what happens. And you can see that I don't think I did not anchor that, so it remains to this. But you can see here clearly the same kind of chart that is generated to show what flavors were ordered the most. And with that, I think we have achieved something quite similar to the VCL application is here on the left side, and the web application is here. And so that is side by side, the desktop application, the web application. We focused on functionally copying the features of this application. Of course, with the web application, we could go a lot further, for example, by adding account-based logging into the system and making the whole system somewhat more responsive, and decorated with somewhat more web-specific layout and colors. But basically, in the scope of somewhat more than an hour, we could bring this desktop application in the world of web applications. And with that, I wanted to conclude this webinar for today. The full source code of this VCL and web application you can download from here. So if you scan that QR code, you will get access to the download full source code. Note, however, that you will need a couple of components to use the demos, the FNC UI pack for the tile list and the tile list box, and the normal list box, the FNC chart. And for the web application, an account, you can register for a free account on stellardatastore.io. And Web Core Beta is at this moment available for all the users with the Web Core license. Get access to the beta anyway. And we will release version 2.6 shortly. I also said why we are using this beta. This is because, as you have noticed, we have added asynchronous or await promise-based constructs for the data sets, which makes working with data sets way easier in coding. And that's why we opted to present it here this way with these promise-based constructs for the data set. If you want to know more, if you want to see more, if you want to talk to us in person about these topics, Web Core, FNC controls, but also many other products like our Xdata product, FlexCell product, Stellar Data Store, and so much more, you can experience all this in person during our upcoming training days on September 26, 27. Information is behind this QR code. And with that, I conclude my presentation, and I'm actually looking forward to hear your questions and answer your questions.
Well, thanks a lot there, Bruno. You did an absolutely stunning demonstration. Your screen is, there you go. I was going to say you're a tiny, like little tiny thing in the corner, but there you go. There you go. Now we're roughly the same size, so I don't have to pat you on the head like that. There you go. It's like Lilliput, wasn't it? I looked like some kind of giant. Great demonstration. Not a huge amount of questions, but we did get people saying congratulations. And Pete Rios also was very impressed with how he used ChatGPT to create the array of colors as well, which actually was a really good demonstration as well. So I thought that was good. And Pete also says, thank you, Bruno. I want to call out a couple of things in your demo in case people missed exactly how cool they were, because I don't think sometimes people, you know, they kind of like drift off and they're, I don't know, thinking about their washing or something. What you did there was you had a VCL project and you had a web core project, and you copied from the VCL project your components, which were FNC components, and dropped them onto the web form, and it just worked. That is very impressive. And then you pretty much copied and pasted the code between the VCL and the web core project as well. And I think this is something that is worth just repeating again and emphasizing, that that reuse is absolutely brilliant. You know, I think that it's something that Delphi programmers are facing more and more at the moment, which is saying, oh, well, you know, we need a web interface, and we don't want it all web, but we want some web stuff. And I think, you know, I'm a big fan of web core. And I think that that was a very good demonstration there of making it work like that. It was great.
Yeah, that was actually one of the key concepts that we wanted to introduce in the FNC controls. FNC stands for Framework Neutral Components. So it is one component code base that can be used in VCL applications, FireMonkey applications, and also in web applications built with web core. So in a VCL application, that components behaves like a VCL component. It descends from the VCLT custom control. In a FireMonkey application, it behaves as a FireMonkey control because it descends from the FireMonkey T control. And in WebCore, it behaves as a web control. It actually uses underlying the HTML canvas for performing the rendering, just like it uses the VCL canvas in a VCL application, and the FireMonkey graphics context for the FireMonkey cross-platform applications. And also noteworthy is that in WebCore, we have actually, and that is also part of the 2.6 beta, we have introduced a additional designer. The designer that I have demonstrated today is actually based on the VCL form designer that is, of course, part of the IDE. So at design time, there is actually at design time technically a VCL control that gets, of course, transpiled to a web control to run in the browser. What we have added in WebCore 2.6 is also a web-based form designer. That means that the VCL form designer is replaced by a browser engine that is hosted in the IDE, and that renders, of course, all the controls as they are also rendered in the end result web application in the browser. And of course, in that scenario, the FNC control on the form designer will behave as a web control.
Yeah. I mean, my experience with working in a fairly large web core project was that code reuse was very high. I did it in an early version of web core, and the await keyword was the thing that I had to use. Await, is that a new, because I can't remember if that was in an earlier version of web core. Is that a recent thing?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly in which version we added it, but the reason is the following. The await construct that the POS2JS transpiler supports, and which is underlying using the JavaScript await construct, that construct is not available in Delphi RTL code, and therefore the LSP does not recognize it, just like the async keyword that is also not recognized. That's why we have created this construct with generics, the T await, and as you have seen, the LSP fully recognizes it, so you get no red underlying in your code. That used to be the case when we did not have this yet. And so
that used to drive me crazy. I used to, I can't, you know. But the way I did it, I have to say, if people were using an early version, the way I did it was conditional compilation. So what I did was I said, if it's not a web core project, then remove this line, and it worked. It got rid of the little squiggly lines so that I could see all the genuine errors that were in my code, which were quite a lot. But it's great. I mean, web core for me. There are different technologies available to produce web apps, but web core is very specific, and it has got a specific purpose that I really can get behind, which is take your Delphi apps. If you're a Delphi person and you're comfortable with doing Delphi things, then you can use all that knowledge without having to go away and do lots of research and create a web app that works and is a proper web app, and it's powerful, and it's a dynamic web page, and you don't really need to know any HTML or anything like that. It helps if you understand, CSS and things like that, because some of the styling can be useful, and Bootstrap is something that's used to style some of the pages as well. But if you're a Delphi person and that's your thing, and you're not a web person, then TMS Web Core, I believe, makes life a lot easier, and it is a very credible way of getting your Delphi apps to become web apps, and I'm a big fan of it. I've said this many times, and there are other alternatives. IntraWeb is one of them, but IntraWeb is different. It's doing something different. It's trying to achieve something different to what Web Core is doing. Web Core is what you get out of the compilation is pure HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it's fantastic. And the implementation that you've made is really good as well. So it's great stuff. Okay, well, we're going to call it a day because we're at the end of our sessions. Everybody was very pleased with your demo. We didn't really get any questions about it. I think you pretty much covered everything in your demo, as you really do. You're very thorough. But I'm going to put your barcode up here. Up above, let me just make that happen. So if they go that way, I'll point in the direction where it is. If they scan that QR code, it'll take you directly. But also, as you can see, Bruno has got his QR code as well, which does the same thing. Scan that code, you'll go to the TMS website, and you can also get the source code from Bruno's QR code there as well. A great demonstration, very convincing. Basically saying, "Look, I'll show you it working. I won't just say it works. Here, I'll show you. The thing working." And to do it live like you did is very impressive. I prefer people not to do live demonstrations, but in your case, I said, "Yeah, no, it's fine. I've seen him do it before. I know he can do it." So. Yeah, we did put you at the end of the day, though, because I knew you wouldn't stick to 45 minutes or something. I knew it was going to be at least an hour and a bit. So, Bruno and I have met a couple of times before. We get on very well. So, well, thanks a lot, Bruno. I'll call it a day with you and close the session. Any final words from you before I sign off for the day?
Thank you very much, Ian, for the opportunity. I think it's very exciting that for Delphi developers everywhere on the planet, we can come together and enjoy the fun in software development. I think that is, that is something that I find really important, that we can share our passion and fun in development.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing it for 40 years and I still get up every day and I write code and I still like it. I can write in, I don't know, 10 different programming languages. I choose Delphi every time because, it just does what you want it to do. And it's great. Well, thanks a lot, Bruno. I'll say goodbye and I'll close the session.